When people hear that Google lost a major ad tech antitrust case, many of them assume the story is about another big fine. It is not. The deeper story is that regulators are challenging whether one company should control too many of the pipes that decide how the open web gets paid. And if you understand that, the case stops being a courtroom update and starts looking like a fight over the economic infrastructure of publishing itself. In April 2025, the Department of Justice won its case arguing that Google monopolized key open web digital advertising markets. The court found that Google unlawfully maintained monopoly power in publisher ad servers and ad exchanges. That sounds technical, but the mechanism is not. Publishers need tools to manage their ad inventory. Buyers need tools to place bids. Exchanges sit in the middle to match demand with impressions. If one company owns enough of that chain, it does not just participate in the market. It can shape how the market clears. That is why the DOJ's proposed remedies matter so much. This is not only about stopping bad conduct going forward. The government has asked for structural changes, including the divestiture of AdX and a phased separation of DFP, because its argument is that Google's control across the stack created the problem in the first place. To see why this is so serious, imagine a stock exchange that also owns the brokers, helps decide the auction rules, controls the data exhaust, and can quietly privilege its own route through the system. That is roughly why this case matters to the open web. The government's filings describe Google's stack as a reinforcing machine. Google Ads brought demand. AdX benefited from privileged access to that demand. DFP became harder for publishers to leave because it was tightly connected to AdX and to Google's broader systems. The result, according to the court and the proposed remedies, was not just efficiency. It was a market structure that steered competition back toward Google. The remedy proposal makes that logic explicit. The DOJ asked for AdX to be divested. It also proposed a phased process for DFP that would open interfaces, reduce switching barriers, expose auction logic, and eventually separate the publisher ad server from Google's control if necessary. Why is that such a big deal? Because the real asset here is not only software. It is information and position. If you sit at the point where publisher inventory, advertiser demand, auction mechanics, and performance data all converge, you learn faster than your rivals, you optimize faster than your rivals, and you can make your own tools more indispensable over time. That creates a self-reinforcing advantage. More scale produces more data. More data improves performance. Better performance attracts more business. More business makes it harder for anyone else to catch up. That is not just a classic monopoly story. It is a machine for compounding market power. And that is why the open web angle matters so much. Google's business is often discussed through consumer products like Search, YouTube, Android, or Chrome. But the ad tech case reaches a different part of the company's influence, the monetization system that thousands of publishers rely on to survive. If publishers do not control the terms of monetization, then in a meaningful sense they do not fully control their own businesses. They may own the content. They may own the audience relationship. But the auction logic, the routing, the data visibility, and the economics of demand can still sit in someone else's hands. That is why the DOJ's remedy filing spends so much time on routing, tie-ins, auction logic, and transparency. Those are not details around the edges. They are the control points. Another reason this case matters is timing. The open web is already under pressure from social platforms, streaming bundles, retail media, and now generative AI interfaces that may intercept user attention before it ever reaches a publisher. So if the ad marketplace underneath publishers is also controlled by one dominant intermediary, then the independent web gets squeezed from both ends, attention on one side and monetization on the other. That makes this case much bigger than Google. It is a test of whether courts are willing to unwind control in a digital market where the dominant position was built through integration, data advantage, and rule setting rather than through a simple price hike. And the result will say something broader about American antitrust. In the Search case, courts were more cautious about structural breakup. In ad tech, the pending remedies decision became a place to ask whether there are markets where behavioral rules are simply too weak because the architecture itself creates the distortion. If the answer is yes, then this case becomes one of the most important tech antitrust signals of the decade. There is also a product-level consequence that matters. If Google is forced to separate parts of its ad tech stack, publishers could get more bargaining room, rival exchanges could compete on more equal terms, and the mechanics of header bidding and auction access could become less tilted. That does not guarantee a golden age for publishers, but it could loosen a grip that many in the industry believe has shaped the market for years. And if the court stops short of full separation, that matters too, because it would signal that even after proving monopoly power in a highly technical market, governments still struggle to get structural relief against a top-tier platform. In that world, the message to the rest of tech is clear: control enough of the plumbing, and remedies may remain incremental. So what is this case really about? It is about whether the open web remains an ecosystem with negotiable market structure, or whether its monetization layer becomes a permanent toll road. Google's ad tech case is not just another fight over corporate size. It is a fight over who writes the rules for the auction that keeps much of the internet alive. And if one company can own the server, the exchange, the demand path, and the data advantage at the same time, then this was never only an advertising story. It was always a control story.